The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now, your host, Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, here, I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander. And on this episode of the CGA Tour podcast, I'm joined by Jake Carlson to recap the latest week in OSU sports and information here as we talk about some Bedlam basketball we have coming up here. We've also got some Oklahoma State football news we haven't talked about yet between you and me. And then we also have, of course, some basketball that we won last week. So, Jake, with that being said here, what do you think about the Ole Miss game from just a couple days ago here on Saturday? We beat Ole Miss 82-60, if I remember the score correctly.
It was really good to watch. I I think we talked a little before, and we weren't necessarily expecting a blowout just because of how we played basketball this year. But it was definitely a blowout, definitely something that was much needed. Ole Miss isn't very good, but we've also seen us play teams that aren't very good really poorly. So it was good to see us play another Power 5 team just really well and not really have to question, did we play well enough? Or, all of the million questions of that come from a 2-point win against Iowa State. None of that was fact, So that was kind of nice.
That was very nice. I will say we had control basically the whole game from, tip off to the end of the game. There was a stretch there in the second half where Ole Miss was making a little bit of a run, coming back within 10 points or so. But besides that, they brought it down from being a 20-point game to a 10-point-ish game. There wasn't really just much struggle with it. Ole Miss is not a good team. We should beat them. We did. And we were actually able to score over 80 points this season, which, going back through here, doesn't happen to us really ever. The last time we scored 80 points, I'm just trying to remember here, period, was against Texas A&M Corpus Christi in December. And that's when we scored 81. So we put up more points against the Ole Miss Fighting Rebels than we did against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So always good to see that. Now, with that being said, we've got the... Yeah?
Was that the second game of the season or something like that?
It was on December 20th, so it was a little bit into the season. We'd already played... we'd beat Wichita State earlier that week by 10, but we'd only put up 59. So, we kind of kicked things off here in a good mood. We did score 82 against DePaul back in November 20th and 82 against Tulsa November 25th. So we really like the score of 82, but besides that, there's just not much. I mean, November 7th was our first game of the season. So always good when we can do that here. A little more than a month later, we put up more than 80 again. We know that this team is not an offensive team, and we definitely know that this team is a defensive team by far and away. So whenever we can put up that many points in a game against another Power 5 team, they've got Power 5 recruits. They had a Duke transfer you told me about the other day too, who transferred into Ole Miss from Duke. So we're beating teams that have at least good players. Maybe they're not good teams, right? And that's what we always like to see. So
big fan is losing is not as good as winning.
No one's going to disagree on that at all whatsoever. The other big news here, though, before we look ahead to Bedlam in a minute, is that with football, the Big 12 schedule has yet to be released so far. So I'm curious here, of the 4 teams that are joining the Big 12 this upcoming season, got University Central Florida, UCF, University of Houston, then we've also got University of Cincinnati, and then we've got Brigham Young University, BYU. Which of those, let's say we're playing the odds here. We're probably going to face 2, I would say, if I had to guess. Which 2 would you want to face? Would you feel most comfortable in either winning against or just think it'd be a good matchup either way?
I mean, the one that I would feel most comfortable face is probably BYU, but it's not out of a slight to them. It's more of okay, I think about UCF, they have Gus Malzahn, and with the way their defense looked this past year, not great. Houston has Dana, and so that's always going to be. There's always going to be some storyline there. Cincinnati's kind of the wild card to me. They're the ones, obviously, with the least amount of consistency, but probably with the most room for growth, depending on what they do. Have they hired a head coach yet?
You know, I don't think they have. I haven't heard of one that they've hired yet, unless they promoted from within and it just didn't make a bunch of news here.
Okay. Yeah, I don't recall them hiring anybody, but that I could be wrong. Yeah, I mean, for winning purposes, BYU probably would like to be there, and I'm sure that OSU would probably like to go play UCF in November. So instead of probably going to Manhattan, whatever. So I'll probably push those two. Knowing how the Big 12 schedule works and how the Big 12 likes to schedule things for isn't even just an us thing. They just seem to like, again, when you play everybody, that's what we're used to. But the weird thing is now, I was joking about this with Will, is we have to pay attention to like who we're playing now, because in the past it didn't matter. Like it just, we knew who we were going to play, and it was all like, oh, we have a back-to-back with Kansas, Texas, and OU. That's going to be so sick. We can play all three of those in a week. Now you have a little bit more of leeway. You might not have to go to Lawrence one year. One of those kinds of things. But I would hope in the Big 12 that they don't make you go to Provo one week and then West Virginia the next week. I hope they're not, because this has got to be, until the Big Ten gets situated, obviously, with USC and UCLA, this will be the conference, I assume, that spreads the most mileage, right?
Yeah, for a while. And just to be correct here, the Cincinnati did hire a football coach there, Scott Satterfield, out of Louisville.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
so,
okay. I do remember
Louisville head football coach who was 25 and 24 and saw 32 players collect all ACC honors, and then three Cardinals when he was there were selected in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. So Satterfield led Louisville to a 7-5 mark last year. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. As much as you can take from that as you want to.
Yeah.
It's a Power 5 head coach moving from one university to another university. It's Power 5 now.
Yeah.
Right? And it might might be a deal. Satterfield in 10 years at Louisville and Appalachian State was at a 61% winning record and was 76 and 48 in 10 years, but he was 25 and 24 at Louisville. So I don't know if he was perennially loved if you almost have a 500 record over multiple seasons at a college. So
yeah,
probably going to hire at the end of the day by Cincinnati, but who knows? We'll see. Yeah,
and I don't think he was the one that got Lamar, but he was the one that I believe brought in Malik Cunningham. So he can kind of get some guys to there, and obviously with the Big 12 being as expansive as it is now, then that'll be that. That's going to be so interesting though, how they because weren't they rumored to release this schedule sometime in mid-January, and then we just haven't seen it. But I have to imagine sorting out the logistics between Morgantown, Orlando, Provo, and literally everywhere in between is probably not an easy task, because someone's going to get screwed.
Someone is. I really hope it's not us. Personally, yeah. I would want to play. I'd want to play Houston and then BYU. I think for kind of the same reasons you're saying here. I'd like to get out west, of course, get on our time zone and here in the Pacific. Yeah. But that's a selfish deal, and it's also a selfish deal because I think BYU is probably the easiest team out of the 4 to play. Much to be determined here, but Cincinnati brings in a new head coach. They could be pretty easy to play, but like you said, they are a wild card at the end of the day. And so I would much rather play the team where I think BYU is the lesser of the 4 evils. Overall, you're really picking between. It's not like we're picking any single team out of the Mountain West here, right? We're picking out of 4 schools that are joining our conference. They're joining our conference for a good reason, because they're good schools anyways. And the other school is Houston, just because, what? That's less travel distance. Hopefully we play Houston and Texas in back-to-back weeks or something where it's easier on that to maintain. So I would like to play those 2 out of the 4 possibilities. But then again, UCF could just have a down year. I don't know who their quarterback is after Dylan Gabriel left. right, for OU just last year. And then I also don't know much about, I really don't know much about overall about Cincinnati's quarterback room or how their whole offense and defense will do with a new head coach. So that leads me to go, you know what? Houston didn't make a ton of waves last year from what I remember. I know they didn't win their conference, and I like to play down there. That's closer by. And then I know a lot of our recruits are from the Texas area, so that'd be probably fun for them, especially if they want to show up Houston a little bit too.
Yeah, Houston, that one should be. I'm assuming that we're going to play Houston, and we're probably going to play Houston at 12 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. Like that, because it's going to be Gun versus Old OC and blah blah blah. And Houston's been, I just as an athletic department in general has been probably skyrocketing higher than even maybe they thought they could between football and basketball. So that one's going to be interesting. I feel like we're not making a big enough deal just about how cool it's going to be that we might not have to, but we're not going to be playing the same teams we play every year. And I feel like, over since we were in college, we played the same 9 teams, and that was it. And there was no difference. So I just think that's going to be really cool. It's going to be really fun. And yeah, interested to see. I mean, you have to presume, are we going to stick with the 9-league schedule?
I would think so.
Right?
We have opponents scheduled until 2033 that are non-conference. So what does the Big 12 do with Oklahoma State's? And I know that can all be worked out. It's all just basically a money deal at the end of the day, right? But we scheduled Alabama in the 2030s, or 2028 plus. We scheduled Oregon in the next couple of years too. I think a home and away with Oregon.
Yeah.
And then we've got Arizona State next year, no matter what. And we've got, you and I ran through. We've also got University of South Alabama, and then I want to say Missouri State at home as well. That's our next year. That's our 3 non-conference opponents next year. I'd say 2 things here that I'm looking forward to is, one, I would like to see us just play just different teams, as you're saying, every year. Year in, year out. You get a better mix of them. You can have a year where you do face easier competition, just that's not in your division, because now next year there'll be 14 teams, right? And then after OU and Texas leave, maybe that's what the holdup is on the schedule. But I don't think I think if OU and Texas were leaving early, then that would be the holdup on the schedule, and that'd be widely known at this point, and that would be widely rumored amongst ESPN and others. The other thing I'd say here is that 14 teams, love to see who we're going to play. That'd be interesting. But when it is back to 12 teams, and there's true divisional opponents, and then our rival, quote unquote, in OU, but our in-state team is leaving. So then we could really be in our own division. And I'd love to see how that maps out. The second thing here is I would love to see, do we get to basically play in the what's quote unquote the Big Ten West or the SEC East or whatever, right? Like, do we get the easier division ranked here? And it may be really hard to tell for a while. K-State last year won the Big 12. You would assume we'd be in the same division as KU, K-State, and then after that, it's kind of interesting, right? But that's because all 3 of us are just in neighboring states right there. And Texas, there's so many schools in Texas, I don't think we necessarily get grouped in with the state of Texas for basically scheduling. So I would guess KU, K-State, and OSU is all grouped together. It's 3 schools in the football conference, and heck, every single year besides basically last year, I'd like to play KU. Going back a while, I'd like to play KU, and that's no shock to anyone. They have less than, I think over the past decade, they have less than 40 wins as a program. So love to play them if I can every year. And K-State, they've just been a true wild card. I know we have a better record than them over the past 10 years for sure, but they won the Big 12 last year, and they always seem to have good guys, and they always seem to recruit their kind of guy at the end of the day. That fits their program real well. So interesting to see how we'll do on that as well.
I mean, and geographically, we are most South team outside of the Texas schools in UCF. So, and if I'm taking out Texas and OU at this point, because I think that's when they're actually going to do the configuring. I think this year they're probably going to be like, okay, well, your loss for games played are, you've got Bedlam, obviously, you've got OU Texas, you've got Kansas State, like kinds of games are like, they're like, oh, we're going to play these no matter what. And then you've got kind of your reconfiguring around on those, which I would hope that's what they're doing, because that's what logically makes sense. But I've been proven wrong before. But if you take Texas OU out of the equation, then we're with Texas Tech, Houston, Baylor, TCU, UCF, Oklahoma State. Those are the farthest south teams. And then obviously you've got the Kansas schools, Iowa State, West Virginia, Cincinnati, BYU. Now I don't know if they're going to do that. I couldn't tell you, but these things seem to make the most sense geographically, but it would probably suck to punish BYU and West Virginia that much, just because that seems like so much travel. They would have every year. Probably taking a break from that wouldn't be a bad thing, because I don't know, a lot of people know this, but like they don't always fly in the Big 12 conference. Like our teams they're not flying to Lawrence. They take a bus. They take a bus to Manhattan. They take a bus to Norman, obviously. I'm pretty sure they take a bus to TCU, don't they?
Yeah, they have to. I would think it means a 3-hour drive. I would guess. I'm showing now what the Big 12 map will look like after OU and Texas leave, just for comparison's sake. If you're watching this on YouTube, and I will say we're also recording this on January 30th as well too. So kind of jinxed it last week where I had on Ryan Flash and we talked about who's the defensive coordinator going to be, and then the next day, before I could even get the podcast edited and put it out, it was Brian Nardo. So maybe tomorrow morning we'll see Big 12 schedule released before I can edit this one, or maybe I'll just do it a little bit quicker tonight and won't be as nice audio wise. But with that being said, I could see us being grouped in for sure when I look at this a little bit better with KU, K-State, BYU, and Iowa State for sure. Right. I think that's probably a good 5, and then maybe Texas Tech. And then the rest is, TCU, Baylor, Houston, Cincinnati, West Virginia. They're going to be grouped together for sure. You look at a map, they're going to be grouped together. They have historically played each other as well, too, before they both joined the Big 12. And so I would figure Cincinnati, West Virginia, UCF, Houston, Baylor, and TCU. If I was a betting man, that's what I take. But I'm not necessarily a betting man whatsoever. So, I'll lay off a little bit here.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the only other way that I could see them doing it is kind of cutting it off: Cincinnati, West Virginia, UCF, Baylor, Houston, TCU, and kind of going, kind of slicing it horizontally in half. But, I know Lubbock isn't as close to Dallas as it appears, or to Fort Worth as it appears on the map. And it seems like BYU is light years away from Stillwater, considering we've driven there. But yeah, that's the only other way they can do it. But I have to presume that they keep the Texas schools there.
Mm-hmm. I would think they'd keep, no matter what, Baylor and Houston and TCU together. The Texas Tech one's interesting because, as you said, Tech's just not close to TCU. It looks on the map here because the logos are all enlarged, but they're not that close together. No. I mean, Amarillo to Stillwater is 7 hours driving. So like, I'm going to hop in the car and, make a trip this week. 6 hours if you're really booking it. But, BYU is a good 10-hour plus drive from Stillwater. I mean, might be 15. And then K-State and KU are 5 hours. I would figure anything within 5 hours of Oklahoma State is pretty much like a team will play. That's why I would say probably TCU, Baylor, but I don't know. It's a real interesting thing here, and I'm curious. Maybe that's why the whole schedule has just not been out yet. It's because it's so hard to put together, as you're saying as well too. What's going on, right? I mean, who's got what? How can everything work out here? And I gotta say, I think it just brings more competitive nature, competitive balance into the Big 12 here as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing that as well because you have a year like Tennessee had this last year in the SEC. Tennessee might do that again this next year with Josh Heupel and others. But I'm just saying you could have every year where it's K-State's going to win the Big 12 this year, and Baylor's going to win the Big 12 the year before, and no longer have it be a Texas and OU basically deal, which the Big 12 was when the Big 12 started for sure. I mean, it was definitely OU and Texas is to take over, and just recently has it not been that case necessarily.
Yeah, it's really just been. I mean, it was kind of just OU for almost 10 years, right?
Yeah,
like Texas,
more or less. Yeah.
I mean, what we take, was it 8 of the last 10 from Texas? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Somewhere
I mean,
in that ballpark.
We beat Texas quite often. I would say this too. I think we have a really good chance to win the Big 12 comparatively now. I like our chances more to win the Big 12 in football versus beforehand. And actually,
maybe not next year, but we don't have to talk about that.
No, next year's a little bit different, but that's what we're going to get to a little bit later here with talking about the defense as well. So I did want to mix it up where we're talking about football, basketball, football, back and forth here. So I do want to bring it back to basketball a little bit here. Right now, we are 12-9 on the season. We have 6 games left, as you and I went through here. Excuse me. We need to win 6 games, is what you and I think. Get to 17 wins on the season, right, to make the tournament. But as it stands right now, we're 12-9. Our best win of the year is a home win against Iowa State by 2. But then again, that's the 13th ranked in the country Iowa State team when we played them. Do you think right now, if everything stopped today, something happened randomly, would we make March Madness?
Probably not. And it's pretty funny because I'm pretty sure Lenardi said that after he said if Oklahoma State, and this was at previous Bedlam, if Oklahoma State beats OU, I don't even think he said convincingly. I just think he said if Oklahoma State beats OU, because we've kind of been just up until obviously they smoked Alabama, which we'll get to, but up until kind of alternating between on the bubble, first 4 out, first 4 or last 4 in, yada yada yada. We were kind of in that range. Now almost seems like he went back on his word, and I don't know if that means other people were playing well, but as we know, Lenardi is the best person to go to for this kind of stuff, and we don't exactly have we were joking about the NFL draft last night, right? Like you can just go type in anything and somebody will have something different than somebody else. We don't have that with the bracket. Like it's Lenardi or kind of bust at that point. You can check CBS, you can check whoever, but he's kind of the end all be all in most people's opinions. And you have your Ken Pom ratings and your nets and all that fun stuff. But I feel like the answer is probably no, and that's me being objective as possible because I haven't seen, outside of the competition that we played, outside of us having I think we have the 5th best strength of schedule this year or something like that. Outside of that, as we know, easier schedules get rewarded more than harder schedules get rewarded. And that's just simply like, I don't know. I mean, look at ACC, for example, right? Like Virginia's number 7 right now. The ACC is not very good. The Duke's even ranked. North Carolina's preseason number 1. They're not ranked. I just, if we played an easier schedule, would we win more games? Yeah. Would we be in contention for the tournament better than we probably are? Yeah. But we don't get to play an easier schedule because we play in the Big 12, obviously. So I just think at the point, no, because I haven't seen, do we look like a tournament team right now other than Ole Miss? Like, have we looked like a tournament team at all this year?
What does the tournament team look like? I want to ask, because we have good wins with that OU game. We beat OU. OU's in Joe Lunardi's next 4 out. And so, just again, if you are watching this on YouTube, I'm trying to do a little bit better here about bringing kind of more of the visual aspect into this so people can see kind of more of what we're talking about every single time. And so, when you look at it, this is January 30th. This is when it was updated. The teams that are on the bubble here is first 4 out, Oklahoma State, next 4 out, OU. All right, well, we beat OU, which is one of the next 4 teams out. And then we beat Iowa State, who's in. And you know what? Yeah,
and we beat West Virginia.
Yeah, and we beat West Virginia, who's also
who's
last 4 in as well. So I'd say if the tournament starts today, no, we don't. No, we're not in because Lunardi has his first 4 out. But there's an argument to be made there that we are in over a Pittsburgh or over a West Virginia because we're 1-0 against him. We haven't played him second time yet. So I'd say there's an argument to be made there that maybe we are in. We're also 7th in the Big 12. Historically, the Big 12 gets 6 to 7 teams in every school year. We are 3-5 in the conference. I'm not trying to really sugarcoat this. As everyone can tell, I'm probably the most biased Oklahoma State fan there is from how proud of being biased I am. But there's some deal in it where it's like, okay, maybe we have a shot of being in it if the season stopped today. It's not for sure yes. It's not for sure no. And Lunardi right now has 7 Big 12 teams in the conference breakdown. And unfortunately, just OU and us
are all those ranked?
2 of those 7. That is a great question. West Virginia is not ranked.
Every except West Virginia is ranked out of that.
Yeah. So 6 of those teams are ranked of those 7 that Lunardi said in Big 12 would have in.
And I don't blame Lunardi for this. It's more so just the system, which I'm pretty happy with the system. But if, like 6 of your teams are ranked and, we don't, 12 doesn't get the luxury of other conferences of getting unranked teams in because so many are ranked, right? And that's kind of just an embarrassment of riches at that point, where it's like, oh, I mean, I don't really know because we're 12-9 right now. Like, what does 12-9 equate to in the SEC? What does 12-9 equate to in the ACC or the Pac-12 or the Big East or whatever? Like, there's Georgetown on our schedule. Like that. I mean, there's some really, really bad. We had Ole Miss on our schedule. We don't get to play them twice. We have to play everybody else twice. And that's just kind of not unlucky, but that's just the way it is. And that's what we're used to. But it's weird that we dropped significantly because I think we were like last 4 in at one point, and then we go U, which we did, and then he moved us to last 4 out, and then we beat Iowa State, and then he moved us back again, and we beat Ole Miss, and then he moved us back again. So I'm not really sure what I feel like are we 3-1 in our last 4 games? Is that right?
In our last how many games?
4.
4. Let me see here real quick because we've won 1 in a row here now. Yeah, let's see here. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3. Yeah, we're 3-1 of the last 4. If we keep going back a little bit, it gets rough though, because we have 3 losses right before then to Baylor, K-State, and Texas. Before, I mean, it's nice we already played Texas twice. I will say, knock those out of the way.
Yeah, and like we talked about this. If you look at Baylor, K-State, and Texas, would you expect to win any of those games?
No, I don't expect to. No.
And again, that's just us being objective. Like that's just That's just the truth. Like we're not better than them. I'm not expecting to win. The only way we win those games is if we get like an Avery Anderson, West Virginia thing where Cade Cunningham's not playing and he drops 35 points or whatever. Like that's how we win games, and we just haven't seen that yet. So we're beating teams we're better than usually, and losing to teams we're worse than. Is that a tournament team? Not sure, but I know this is apples to oranges, but Michigan in football gets to play cupcakes and gets rewarded. Maybe in basketball we can play really hard teams and hopefully get rewarded too. That's kind of my hope, I guess.
Yeah, that would be the hope for sure that I'd have. Right now, the season ends. I don't know if we make the tournament. It's an iffy thing, right? But Wednesday we play at OU. Then we've got down the stretch here. We've got basically still just a lot of ranked teams here in the Big 12 as you're getting to, right? It's nice we got a lot of them at home though. I mean, we have we play at OU. Then we got TCU at home on Saturday. Hopefully the arena's packed. I would hope. Then Texas Tech at home on Wednesday. A week from this Wednesday. Then at Iowa State, but then KU at home. Generally, KU at home, man, that's usually a really, really fun matchup, no matter what we can do about it. It is on Valentine's Day, so hopefully the Oklahoma State faithful and fan base can really get there, especially to that student section there, and give KU some hell. But then, at TCU, at West Virginia, and we finish off with, 2 more games at home before we go to Texas Tech in March and play them away. So I'd say this. Is our schedule favorable down the stretch? No, we're in the Big 12. That's just not going to be a deal. It's just not.
Yeah.
But is our schedule all right down the stretch? Sure. It is nice that we haven't played West Virginia for the second time. We haven't played Texas Tech at all, and they're not ranked, at least when the Big 12 comes down to it. It is really just a powerhouse league. So you're playing basically somebody super good every night. You just knocked it off the second best team in the country in Alabama on Saturday. And then we get to play them as their follow-up game, right? Maybe they'll have a huge letdown. Maybe we'll be super amped up for it and win. But guess what? You put up 90-plus points against the second-best team in the country. That's not a cakewalk against your Bedlam opponent, ever. Especially not when they did that, in the game on Saturday before us.
And probably a top 5 draft pick, too.
Yeah, a top 5 draft pick for Alabama, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, that's who they beat. So we'll have our backs up against the wall. It won't be the greatest deal ever, Yeah. With that being said, we'll love to see us win, of course. And what are your expectations for the game here Wednesday if we want to make a prediction?
It probably looks nothing like what it did in Stillwater. But we went over the OU stats, and you shot like 65% or something from the field and 50% from 3.
I think it was even like 59% from 3 against Alabama.
Yeah, any sane person would tell you that that's not. It's nearly impossible to keep up. Could they do it 2 games in a row? Sure. 3. I mean, the more games you go, the more you're pushing it. It's just not likely. And could it happen twice in a season? Sure. Could it happen against Alabama and then us? Sure. Is it likely? No. I'm not calling their win fluky, but there's a reason that the Big 12 plays really well against the SEC every year. The defense just isn't as good. It's just not.
It's not. I will say what we got going for us is that we are the same. Basically we're the same overall record as OU. We have 1 more conference win than they do. We have 1 less win out of conference than they do. That's how that works math-wise, in case anyone's curious. And then the ESPN matchup predictor is basically OU's going to win. Has OU 60%. It's going to be a really, really tough game, and it always is because it's OU. And We won the previous matchup 72-56, which I forgot about how much of a blowout that was because it's OU. You never feel comfortable. Never feel comfortable against your in-state rival. And honestly, I'm glad that the Big 12 SEC Challenge is a thing because I think we'll get to play OU here in the future because it's always a lot of fun to see those games. And it's fun to have the opportunity for Oakland State fans to go just 90 miles south to Norman and see OU play.
Yeah.
And see us play, another game, go to an away game only 90 miles away isn't too bad. Maybe it's not even that far anymore. So it's just what is funny though is that we both average about the same amount of points overall every game. We average about 68 points, 68.8. They average 68.5. And our field goal percentage is 5% worse than theirs, and our rebounds are 5 rebounds better than theirs. Assists, we're about the same. We both have 13 blocks. We lead the Big 12 in blocks, which is awesome, but it's Musa Cisse, basically. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the lead. He's the Big 12 leader in blocks when he doesn't see the court. That's what it is. But I'd say I feel pretty good about it. Game comes on at 8 o'clock Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Central Time, 6 o'clock Pacific. So be really interested for that one. We'll see what's up. Hopefully, fingers crossed, can get a W there as well too. All right, well now switching back to football, of course. Here, who's the best OSU player in the NFL right now? If you're taking a pick, I know that we're just heading the Super Bowl. Eagles and Chiefs are playing here in less than 2 weeks. But who do you got as far as the best current player in the NFL here, OSU wise?
That's tough. Is Trey Flowers still playing for? Was he playing for Cincinnati?
He might. I think he was, but I don't know.
Let's see.
Yeah, it looks like as 1 week ago they put out something about him. So highlights versus Tampa Bay they put out 1 week ago. So yeah, he's currently for Cincinnati Bengals from what I can read here.
Yeah. I know he played a lot last year for Cincinnati on their Super Bowl run. I mean, was it Jaylen Warren?
I'm gonna stay defensive, but I'm gonna go with Malcolm Rodriguez.
Malcolm Rodriguez. Ogba had a really good year as well.
Ogba had a really good year too, and Rodriguez earned like All Pro like rookie honors. So rookie honors, but All Pro rookie honors, and that's who I'm going with at least. So
yeah, he definitely probably has most like potential, I guess, like the up and up. I would say, especially if they keep Campbell around too. He seems kind of like the perfect player for, because we can't really claim Tyreek. So,
nope.
That's unfortunate.
Can OU claim Jalen Hurts?
Sure.
Bringing up we can't claim Tyreek. Really?
Sure. He graduated from OU.
Wait, what didn't he get his grad degree? I mean, I'm just trying to poke the bear a little bit here because hear me out on this one. He wore an Alabama shirt in his press conference for the Eagles after he's going to Super Bowl. He wore an Alabama shirt. Doesn't mean anything?
Nope.
Oh well. All right. I mean, I was just trying to I think it means something. I think when you play 1 year at a school, like I'm not gonna claim Tay Martin necessarily every single day. He played 1 year for us. I'm not claiming Tyron Johnson every single day because he played 1 year for us. They do good, awesome, but I'm not like I mean, I'm sure we'd be saying wide receiver U if we had him or whatever because we're the last school to have him on our roster, but I'm not all about it. Not all over it, as well say. Right. I'm looking through here of the Oklahoma State guys who are in the NFL, and it's just a lot of second stringers. Tevin Jenkins is a first stringer. Malcolm Rodriguez is a first stringer, and those are the only two guys who are first string guys. So Warren's second string. Who else? He said Trey Flowers is second string. So yeah, I'd say what I'm saying best. like best overall
Yeah.
production wise. It's kind of however you want to put it together there too. So
Is Ogba second string?
yeah, he is. They traded in the middle of the season there for who's the guy? Bradley Chubb, right? They trade for him from the Broncos.
That's right. Yeah, and then they gave like Ogba an extension or something like that too.
Yeah, probably kind of keep him happy there. I mean, kind of sucks when you get trade for a player, trade for a player, and you're not going out, and the guy's coming in to basically take over your spot, and he's been an All-Pro for years. So,
playing in Miami can't be bad.
Can't be bad. Can't be too heartbroken about that, though. I will say, as two people who live on the Southern California. What are you most looking forward to improve on the defensive side this year football?
We got to get the pass rush back.
Yeah, we hired Brandon Nardo, and hopefully that kind of means a little bit more. He apparently ran a 3 high safety look. I don't know if that means a lot. He's the co-defensive coordinator with Joe Bob Clements. I would guess you're bringing in a new guy to run more of a defensive scheme and set the tone defensive scheme-wise, but who knows? I would say at the end of the day, yeah, probably just getting after the quarterback. It seemed like we really didn't do that too well last year.
Yeah, it seems like we just kind of lost Colin Oliver in the shuffle for some reason. I don't really know where he went. He went from looking like he could be a first-round pick to now I don't know what happened to him. They've just got to stop allowing the chunk yards because we've seen it like a lot. And it even happens sometimes with Jim Knowles too, where it's like, okay, this is kind of getting ridiculous. Like, can we let this go? But I think we were pushing like 115, 120 in the defensive efficiency ratings this year and total yardage allowed. That's pretty bad. And I obviously, because there's 135 teams or whatever. And I don't. Some people would want to blame Derek Mason. Some people, people want to place blame wherever. I think it's probably a combination of everything. Between Derek Mason, between probably our players, just one, it's not what we had last year or 2 years ago now, I guess. And I just don't. I don't know if we're getting the right guys. That's my biggest concern. I don't know if we're getting the right guys. The 3 high safety look is going to be, if that is what we run, it's going to be interesting because then we're still get a lot of the stuff underneath. You're sacrificing not getting beat over the top, but you're also giving up the run a lot, because that means they've got all 11 of their players within 10 yards of the ball, and we've got 8, 9 within 10 yards of the ball. Like, if you just look at sheer numbers, I don't know how that's going to work in the Big 12 running 3 high safeties with against Dana Holgerson and Gus Malzahn does not sound like something that is very fun.
No, it doesn't. I would hope we can get back to the quarterback again, be kind of more of that sack type of team.
Yeah.
Just be more aggressive overall, though, is what I would hope for. Less, right, like you're saying, like less line of chunk plays. But I think a lot of that side of it has to come with, okay, if we're really excited about getting after quarterback, then that means that we have to also kind of look in the mirror and go, okay, well, our defense is going to play more prevent, more like deeper looks if we're trying to hold teams to a certain amount of points, right? And we're trying to really keep, and we can't take chances as much. We can't be as experimental on the defensive side when our offense isn't there to back them up, more or less.
Yeah.
So, and also looking through like the guys we signed over the last couple of years, unfortunately, it's not jumping off the page with like, oh my gosh, we have so many great defensive recruits either. So,
Yeah.
and then the guys who come up here on 247 are not guys where I'm like, oh my gosh, we have that guy. I mean, last year, for example, our first guy who's, he's a defensive guy is Deshaun Brown, who I'm not familiar with, but he's an edge, and he is below Rangel here on the recruiting rankings to give everyone an idea. Now, he's from Choctaw, Oklahoma, 3-star prospect, 10th best prospect in the entire state of Oklahoma. Give him credit where it's due, give him his flowers. But, and then below him is Cameron Epps. So, and he's also a 3-star guy who, from St. Louis. So, there's 2 defensive guys there who, all right, are still on the roster, as far as I know, and can't enter the portal anymore, at least right now. And so I feel pretty good about that. But I just would like to see our defense be able to have the chance to take more chances, right? Our defense play with a little bit more, oh my gosh, they were able to get them, type of deal. Unless, like, we have to play kind of the prevent or play back a little bit. So that's what I look forward to see.
Yeah,
next year.
Just a more aggressive, that's really it. Just a more aggressive nature. I feel like we definitely didn't have it last year. That's for sure. And I just feel like I didn't realize our defense was as bad as it was until I saw the stats.
Yeah.
I know Casey,
and I'm with you.
We've talked about it. Casey's gotten a lot of blame. Quarterback gotten a lot of blame. We had a bottom 15 defense in the country.
Yeah,
not great.
We did. Now, I will say for this, the guys who've signed a letter of intent who are coming to Oklahoma State, who are going to be on the roster here shortly, and will be on the roster for the 2023 season, I would think. Of the top 7 guys, am I doing this right? Yeah. 5 of the top 7 guys are all defensive. So you've got our best recruit next year, which is Zane Flores, then Cameron Hurd, who's a wide receiver, and then the next 5 guys in a row, including Ladarius Webb, who is a transfer corner who we think will play pretty much. 5 of the top 7 guys are all defensive. They're coming in this year. So that's a really good improvement, and I love seeing that because we know defense is an area of need, and we know offense. We also have an area of need there, too. I'm not saying we don't. I'm just saying, grand scheme of things, defense seems like we're depleted a little bit more, especially after losing Jabbar Muhammad and Mason Cobb. Trace Ford, I'm not actually too crazy about losing just because he just didn't. He just wasn't able to stay healthy enough where it was a huge loss in that way.
Yeah.
And then lastly here, so over the weekend at the Remember the 10 game, shout out to the Remember the 10, and please volunteer or sign up to run for the Remember the 10 run. I will meet you in Stillwater if you are. But with that being said here, the O'Cauley put a newspaper, ad here where basically it's not an ad, where they basically put out, a big, huge picturesque thing to show whenever we're doing lineups and Ole Miss is doing their lineup. We can show it during, just shove it in the other team's face during games, etc. And, basically show them up, right? And we put that, have our leftovers. And then it had a photo of Spencer Sanders, who's transferred to Ole Miss. And that was not received well by any single football player on Oklahoma State's team. I don't know if there's a better way to word that here, but basically, the O'Cauley puts together something in the paper that is able to show basketball games of saying, you have fun with our leftovers, and Spencer Sanders and Leo Box.
Or any OSU media, for that matter, as well. Like, there were there was more pushback from people whose opinions care far more about than Nancy on Twitter.
Well, but I'm specifically saying the football team because when your own football team goes, "What are you doing?" to the student newspaper, that happens. But this wasn't like "Oh, hey, you're wrong in this article," or like, "Oh, you got this like a little bit wrong." This was just like disrespectful at the end of the day. I don't know what the deal was, to be honest. I get it, trying to make a joke about, the leftovers deal, but it's just not, it says enjoy the leftovers in a huge box. It's just not well done whatsoever.
No, they should have done enjoy the turnovers.
That would have been a little bit better and a little bit funnier and not as mean, but maybe a little bit more.
I don't get the leftover bit. I don't get it. Like, is it just like I don't it wasn't like funny to me, I guess. Like a turnover, albeit mean, if you put Spencer Sanders on top of an apple turnover and said enjoy our turnovers, is it mean? Yeah. Does it make more sense? Also, yes. Like, it just seems like they completely missed the mark, and whatever groupthink type deal they had going for this, it probably wasn't a very good idea. And then, not to mention, I mean, I don't get it. And then you brought up a good point. Why didn't you do this against OU with Trace Ford? That would have been more applicable because it's Bedlam. We have a vested. No one cares about Ole Miss at OSU. Like, not to the magnitude they care about OU.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember who said it. It might have been Jacob Unruh or something like that. And he said to do this on the Remember the 10 game just seemed pretty distasteful.
I totally agree that I think it's distasteful for the Remember the 10 game. And I just don't understand it either, because there's so much of like the Oklahoma State fan base going, oh gosh, well, I mean, all right, we're just tongue in cheek, we're having fun with it. And then there's how could we disrespect a guy who did everything he could for this program and then left? I'm somewhere in the middle of that, but I think the middle still just goes, why do we care so much? Like, why is like a student body are we going, oh, you know what would be funny is if we put together something in the paper to make fun of Ole Miss. Like, really? Like, I don't know. If it had been me, it'd been a big Remember the 10 thing. Or it would also have been just like, I mean, Ole Miss has beaten us in every single time we played them in football, I believe.
Yeah.
They beat us when they had Eli Manning. They beat us when they also had, oh gosh, who's like Chad, and they beat us when they had Chad Kelly as well. Back in the, they beat us twice in the Sugar Bowl, if I remember correctly here. So I just don't get the, like, let's give Ole Miss a hard time for our quarterback who left and, after playing for us for better part of 4 years, he's injured. But yeah, I don't get making fun of Ole Miss on this day. And also, like, if you're going to make fun of somebody getting transfer, like, then when we play West Virginia in the future, for example, are they going to put something in the paper where it's like, enjoy the leftovers when we got Josh Sill? Like, if I had to say, we'd probably rather have Sanders and we'd rather have the leftovers here in this situation than not. So maybe let's not do this overall.
I think my thing with it is like, I just don't get the leftover bit. I don't really understand it. I don't understand why he's in a takeout box. Like, I feel like this could have been something or funny, but they just put Spencer Sanders in an Ole Miss takeout box and said, enjoy the leftover. I don't get it. I don't, like, is that, I don't get it. It's not funny. It's not like, enjoy the turnovers would have been way more witty and funny, to be honest. And I'm not just saying that because I come up with it, but it's actually a point. But leftovers to me is like, oh yeah, you get it's like, oh, enjoy my ex-girlfriend. Like, that's what it seems like. And I'm like, oh, this is stupid.
It'd be really funny if it was, oh, we got a transfer who's better, or we had a guy come in and outplay Sanders and take over his spot. That's just not what happened, though. I mean, we leftovers, like, enjoy the entree. Like, we'd rather have him. You know, that's kind of my deal. To be honest, like, enjoy the best quarterback we've seen over the past 4 years. You know, try to compete for the number 1 overall spot in your, you know, on your team. Enjoy the embarrassment of riches that you have in the quarterback room. What's bizarre about this whole deal to me is that everything we've read out of Oklahoma State, you know, football kind of rumors on top of stuff, is that Sanders wanted to come back and play either in the bowl game or want to come back and play next year for us or something. And there's a lot being said as well, too. Again, all reported rumors, all just complete Twitter rumors. But I know you and I are down some severe, huge rabbit holes with Oklahoma State football in it, you know, and Reddit and all type of stuff too. So I'm going to mention it. Yeah, but I'm going to mention it. And I would say, unfortunately, it's our passion of doing the podcast here and looking into it. So like, you know, unfortunately, if you don't care about it, like then at the 48-minute mark of the podcast, for people tuned out, like I'll understand why. But with that being said, Sanders' degree, apparently, that he got at Oklahoma State could not transfer to Auburn seamlessly. He would have had to basically come back to Oklahoma State here, not as a player, and then get some hours, or transfer to like another college for basically like this spring semester for a little bit, and then transfer to Auburn, excuse me, if he was going to be their starting quarterback, because they didn't have the same degree that he had that he was getting at Oklahoma State. Now, what all that degree is, I believe it's like a study, general studies, university studies, business studies, or something like that. Degree.
It's the university, because Dakota made a joke about it, because that's what Dakota got his degree in, and he said, "Me and Spencer Sanders have the same degree," or something like that.
So, but I'm putting all of that like together here and saying all of that to get to the point of, why give this guy a hard time? Like, at the end of the day, I know this isn't directed at him. It's directed at Ole Miss, but it's not. It clearly is featuring our former football player who would probably want to have him. If Sanders gets drafted in the NFL, even if it's not as a quarterback and he does anything at all, he gets drafted, period. However be it. Or doesn't get drafted. We probably still don't want to make an enemy out of a guy who played for us for 4 years whatsoever.
Yeah.
I know that's not the O'Callie's job to basically want to make sure our football players want to come back and be around. I know that's not the O'Callie's job. I am fully aware. But with that being said, like, what are we getting out of this? Like, oh, that was funny. Like, was it?
Well, and especially if he just like goes and cooks for Ole Miss.
Oh my gosh. Like, if he goes and he starts over Jackson Dart and the other transfer they got in, and he is able to light it up for Ole Miss, we're all going to be pissed as Oklahoma State fans. Mad that we didn't do everything in our willpower to like bless him on his way out, and they say thanks so much for playing for us, etc. Wish you the best. And that every Oklahoma State fan didn't say that. Be mad they didn't do that.
It's like you said though, like, it would be different if we got somebody that we were really excited about. Like what?
Yeah.
The fact that we're seeing some Oklahoma State fans pretending like they're in some ivory castle here is pretty hilarious. It's like a tree house that has 6 steps up the tree that your dad built. Like that's what it's like, because the grass isn't greener. Like, it's just not. We're probably going to be much worse than Ole Miss next year. And going after Spencer Sanders in this case just kind of seems like it was pretty low-hanging fruit to me, which is why I was just like, just put the the patented remember the 10 thing on there and just leave it at that.
Or put have fun and then a random photo of Ole Miss that doesn't look great. You know, like Sanders, right? Like, have fun and then have a big photo of something dumb at Ole Miss that's happened previously.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're good luck, and then make fun of the fact that he's leaving Oklahoma State. Don't make, like, have fun with that, type of deal. Just, I know this wasn't directed at him, and that was the point of like, hey, Ole Miss, like you get our leftovers. Hey, but again, go back to it, just what you said, just what I said earlier too. Like it's just not that. Why are we giving so much attention to a guy that honestly we should be wishing the best to and moving on from? Right. It seems like every Oklahoma State fan's like, oh, I can't wait to move on from this ordeal and see where our quarterback is, etc. And it's like, then, Colley's got to, do something about it too. Like, all right, whatever.
They also completely missed the mark in thinking that Ole Miss cares about basketball.
Oh, yeah, they don't. No.
Like, no. They don't care. They don't care.
No. Not at all. Not at all whatsoever. Well, as we kind of wrap up this episode here, anything else you want to mention here?
I hope we beat OU. I think we probably need that pretty badly if we plan on going to the tournament.
I agree. So here's to a big Oklahoma State win coming up here on Wednesday night. And check your local listings, but it's on ESPN2 at 8 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, and why not say it, 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So
remember to tune into Kansas State on ESPN Plus tomorrow. Number 7 versus number 8 on ESPN Plus. Yep.
Why is that not on ESPN? What's taking it out? Any idea? Oh gosh, the last 2 seconds of the recording here. I'm looking it up here for all those fans who are curious of why in the heck would this game not be, basically on a main ESPN channel? Why would it be on ESPN Plus tomorrow night? And I'm not sure necessarily why. I do not know if I will get this loaded up here in time. So
is it NBA basketball? No, NBA's on TNT tomorrow. NBA's on TNT tomorrow.
Yep. No. I am not sure. Football. All right. Well, we're just gonna play
Duke and Wake Forest, baby. Duke and Wake Forest is on at 4 o'clock West Coast time. That is the first slot of ESPN games. That is on regular ESPN. Then second ESPN game is Ole Miss and Kentucky. Thank you, ESPN, for continuing to be competent when it comes to the Big 12. Thank you. So with that, 2 unranked matchups. There you go.
I mean, it's Kentucky, I guess. I don't know. I will not understand that. And Duke. But yeah, Duke at 4. And then shout out, you can watch Kentucky Ole Miss at 6. You can watch Indiana Maryland on ESPN2. And then you can also watch Texas A&M Arkansas on ESPN2. So have fun with that. With that being said, please follow at CGA Tour on Twitter and Instagram for more. Let me know if you're watching the episodes on YouTube. Send me a shout out, put down a comment, do whatever, just so I know that your people are listening through YouTube as well. And please share the podcast with anyone you may know, love, or just know who generally wants to hear Jake and I talk about sports here. We'll branch out here, maybe it's a future episodes. With that being said, catch you guys again soon. Peace.